Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Today we are talking about the most un-KTM KTM, the nicest of the KTMs.
These are my lines.
Okay, we're talking about the 250 Duke, and Shumi's been riding the new one, and I am, believe it or not, this is the middle of the family, and in some ways you think about it so fondly, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what it's like in its newest avatar.
Yeah, so as much as I have a 390 Duke, as much as I love what the 390 Duke represents, I think the 250 Duke is actually the best Duke and the least KTM of the Duke.
Right?
Okay, let me explain that, okay? So to me, the KTMs are generally super aggressive.
Wait, we have to start doing these properly. Let me ask you, what do you mean by that, Shumi?
What I mean by that, Kartikeya, is that the KTMs are generally aggressive machines. You should know that everybody at KTM R&D more or less races. They are Austrian, which is a specific kind of madness. They talk to the people in Chakan, which is outside Pune, which is another kind of madness. These guys never race. They can't believe there is racing going on. They hate racing. And then there is ready to race on the other side, right?
Hate racing indeed.
Yeah, so the combination of this is madness. And the Dukes have always been some of the most aggressive, challenging machines you've ridden. And the higher up you go, the more challenging they become is their nature. And the 250 Duke is just not that. It's like the sweetest of the Dukes. It's the easiest to ride in some ways. It's the least challenging to ride in some ways. And it's still got that same sharpness and that character of the KTMs anywhere. So it's the easiest Duke to recommend to anybody who asks. It's a lot harder to recommend the 125 because it's just so expensive. How would you recommend it?
Right.
The 200s are very fast and you don't realize how fast they are. So again, you think a little bit about the 200. The 390, of course, is madness. So,
But by that, what do you mean? By the 200 in relation to the 125?
No, 200 by itself is not a motorcycle that feels very fast. But then you start revving it out. When you rev it out, then it's like, here's 25 bhp, take it. And then suddenly you're going very fast, right? And the 390, of course, is 390, right?
So in this, you mean the nature of it wanting to go fast all the time?
The Duke 250 is the calmest of this whole lot, which it says, hey, listen, I can be revved out. It's fine if you want to do that, but I'm okay to ride slowly also. And it's kind of neutral about how you'd like to use the motorcycle today. So for a learner rider, remember the global category of learners is 250cc and below, about 30 bhp and below, and there is a power to weight ratio in there somewhere. The Duke 250 to me has always been the ultimate learner's tool in that sense, right? You get the fastest machine you can. It gives you the greatest latitude you'll get. And that to me is a 250 Duke if you're in the sporty mindset. If you have a different mindset, then there are other machines. If you're even more sporty, handling is more important than performance, maybe R15. If you want something calm, the Pulsar 250 is actually quite good. If you want a cruiser, then I don't think you have a choice beyond the Avenger.
Did you just say Pulsars are calm?
The 250s, yeah. Remember what I said, Chakan doesnn't like racing. Calm is our scene.
What was the line? Leave
track racing to the amateurs.
Amateurs, yeah, correct.
That was spot on. I was a Freudian slip almost. If you know what that meant, leave us a comment.
Okay.
Yeah. So, shall I give you a quick primer on what they've done?
What's new? Yeah.
Yeah. So, the frame is the same as the 390 Duke updated frames. It's the 2024 frame. And if you've seen our 390 Duke story, that's a very high bar now, right? Minor changes to the suspension. Front wheel travel has improved a little bit, which has an impact, obviously. They were open cartridge forks earlier. Now they moved on to the big piston fork. So there's more control now. So remember, we said the 390 Duke got more sophisticated. So has the 250 Duke, but obviously it doesn't have any adjustable suspension. Rear is preload adjustable only. Tires are one step below. So you had Metzeler's on that. I think you have MRFs or
relative to the 390.
Relative to the 390, the tires are one step below. Same wheels as the RC, etc. So the lighter wheels, lighter brake, the lower unsprung mass, all of that is there. This motorcycle is quite a bit lighter than the outgoing 250 Duke also in the process.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The engine, for the first time, is not shared with the 390 Duke as a platform. So if you remember, the old 250 Duke was basically Bajaj's official term, which I heard recently, was cut down 390 engine.
Cut down.
It's not a bad thing. But now it's a completely different engine. Nothing is shared. And the big change, brace, is it's a SOHC configuration. It's not DOHC anymore.
Really?
Yeah. So it's higher compression. It produces a little bit more performance, both torque and horsepower. But it's not a DOHC anymore. And I'm going to guess that if you remember, the previous Duke family had 4 Dukes in it. But there were 2 engine families in it. So the 125 and 200 shared an engine. The 250 and the 390 shared an engine. I believe and this is my guess, I believe that the 250 will now give birth to the 200 and the 125 as derivatives, and the 390 engine will be shared with something we don't know yet what it is.
Interesting.
Yeah. So can the 390 engine grow in size? Will it become a larger engine? I don't know.
In terms of power, is it similar to the old bike? Is
30, now 31.
Okay, so mild. So it's only gone up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing has been removed from this bike. Look, they raised the compression too. So they're getting more economy and more performance as an opportunity from raising the compression. But they're saving a little bit is the cost by not having to put the second cam unit, etc. But I don't think the engines become worse because of it at all.
Right. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, technology is what technology does. Its existence by itself doesn't make any difference, right?
Absolutely.
So if you added a titanium plate with your name on it into under the Duke seat, for example, you'd have titanium on your bike. It would do nothing for performance, and therefore that plate is completely useless. You might as well make it out of plastic.
They use titanium in our chassis.
So the SOHC through DOHC transition is interesting because of the opportunity it represents for what the 390 engine will do next. But for the 250, it makes no negatives as far as I can tell.
So this is really cool. Where we started off with was it's a friendly motorcycle.
Yeah.
So it's got more compression, single overhead cam.
Yeah.
Still as friendly to ride?
Yes. So the only thing I noticed, which I think is a bit of a negative if at all, is that you remember the Duke 390 starts performing at 5,000 now, which makes the experience of riding the Duke in city traffic a lot easier than the last time. The 250 never had this challenge in the first place anyway, because it was a much more linear power band and it did so much. It still is. But now it feels like when you really want to go, then you have to get past 6.5. It's not like a step, but that's when things get interesting. But below that, it is still effortless, easy, you're passing things. You have a sense of speed, but not too much of a sense of speed. You have a sense of this is nice and quick, but not scarily or frantic or frenetic or any of these things. So the sense of peace that the 250 Duke always had, it's still there and I still love it for it.
Does it feel more refined now?
It's very refined now.
Oh.
So the test bike we have, I was looking for where will the vibration come, where will it go, because Dukes are generally inconsistent about it, right? The 390 starts at the bottom, tapers off towards the top and so on and so forth. Nothing. So if in some ways, and I'm not alleging that this is what has happened, but in some ways it reminds me of the 250 Pulsar somehow, because the Pulsars make a lot of torque, but there's no vibration all the way till the red line.
Yeah.
This one makes an even spread of performance, but there's no real vibration anywhere either. So this is a smooth bike. It doesn't feel buttery, creamy smooth, but it's smooth enough to say, I'm from Austria and from Pune, but I know I got this. So I like it. I really, really, really like it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. The other thing about this, which I was thinking about earlier when we were talking outside, is that a learner's motorcycle. And I'm saying you could buy the Duke 250 as your first ever motorcycle. I would not be too concerned about it.
Right.
Because it's so easy to ride when you're not pushing it, but it has so much performance when you are, that you have a really large latitude to be able to play with the nature of performance. So if you keep below 6,000 RPM, change gears quickly and ride it like a commuter, it's not going to fight with you.
Right.
But when you say, oh, this is a nice straight highway stretch or a curvy highway stretch, and I'm going to like try something, it's playing with you. It's fine. It's not going to challenge you.
In my head, this combination is starting to play out like a term we used to use for the R15, like the cheat code bike, because the chassis was so good that the performance that it had was easily managed by the chassis. So,
except I think that the chassis here is going to be interesting to adapt to. It's not unforgiving or incapable. It's just very different.
Okay. Very different too?
For R15, for example.
R15, yeah,
right?
okay.
So the R15 chassis feels a little bit long and you're in the middle of the chassis. It's almost like the bike's movements are pivoting around you. So you have a sense of everything is going to this pace and place, right?
And ultra composed.
Yeah. The Duke 250 and KTM are evil in this one regard, right? So they've basically moved you further up the bike and then sharpened the steering a little bit. What happened was basically that we have temporary number plate on this bike, and now the number plates are designed for rivets. So we've been struggling with the screws and the nuts and bolts because even the dealerships don't pay attention to it because it's not part of their process anymore. So I had a nut that was opening up on my front number plate as I rode.
Oh, you could.
I had to fix it. So what I noticed is that I did this to fix it.
Yeah, that
it was right here. It was this close to my, so this is the helmet, and I did this to tighten it. And that is a very strange feeling because the number plate is right here.
Yeah.
It's so compact.
Yeah.
It's so close that when you make a steering input, it's not happening just ahead of you. It's happening under you, as it were, right? It's a very interesting feeling. At first, for a new rider especially, I think it's going to be a little bit like, wow, this is too immediate. This is too quick. But when you get used to it, it feels like the wheelbase is about the length of your pelvis front to back. That's the wheelbase of this motorcycle. It's connected, it's telepathic, and it's just turning and moving and changing direction. It's insane.
Oh, wow.
But it's not jittery or...
I was just...
Yeah, so it's not like it's
over
jittery.
Bumps when you're in corners and stuff like that.
It doesn't have the refinement of the 390. The current 2024 is like... It's a very high order of magnitude. This is not that kind of sophisticated, but it's got control. It'll manage a lot. And I think what the KTMs have changed for this generation of suspension and the lighter wheels contribute, I think, is that the low-end bump absorption, where you have small, it's doing a great job.
Okay.
But it keeps some of its ability as the bumps get larger. And ultimately, then eventually you'll feel something. So they push the problems further up the ladder until you're going very fast is when it starts to challenge you. So the 250 Duke is doing great jobs there. And I loved how quickly it is able to change direction. You never get the sense it's nervous or jittery. It's like, you wanted this, let's do this. And then it's just, it's awesome. I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, what I keep coming back to is that the 390 Duke does this, but the Duke 390 is almost like your challenger. It's always asking you the question saying, have you got it? I got this, but do you have it? The Duke 250 says, we're together in this. Let's have a lot of fun. And then it matches your pace. That's why it sounds wrong, but it is my most recommended Duke. It's not the 390 that I recommend the most often. It's the 250 that
not
actually gets
anymore
recommended
for sure.
most often.
Yeah.
So brakes work really well. Feedback, force, both are there. Tires are reasonably grippy enough. You can do better. Thankfully, they're the same size as the 390 Duke. So you want to max out your 250 Duke, get the Pro Torque Extreme from Eurogrip. Or the H1 from Apollo, which is going to last a little bit longer but a little less grippy. But you can really raise the bar on the tires.
And how much does it rev out to?
I didn't check, but 10,000-ish.
Okay, similar then.
Yeah. None of those fundamentals have changed.
I was just thinking, because I started thinking about the track again for this, because it'll almost be like this toy bike for the track, like in the sense that, it's flippantly fun. Like you're not going to be thinking too much about riding it.
I firmly believe that if you were to take the 250 to the track now, you're going to feel like this is slow. Not in the corners.
So not for us. So if somebody is a beginner rider, I'm thinking about it from the point of flexibility.
100%.
Right? Whereas on the 390, because of how it revs out, you have to be really good with the gears, what gears, I mean, even the previous gen and the first gen, you have to be, first gen especially, you had to get the gears really right to not run out of steam. Whereas the 250 is feeling like it'll be more flexible. You can, chug it a bit as well and let it go through.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's that kind of flexible. Okay, I have a concept that I'd like to explain to you because I'm probably going to use it in a future episode somewhere anyway and repeatedly, right? I think of power curves as having three characters. A convex character, a straight line, and a concave character. A convex character would mean that it'll always feel like, wow, it's doing so much. It's like an extroverted kind of performance, which the 390, for example, has always had. A concave delivery is something like the 200. Which is I build slowly, but when I start building, then the curve ramps up really hard. To me, the 250 Duke has always had the straight line in the middle. At the racetrack, as you up the pace, straight lines get boring. I'd rather be challenged by the extroverted first and then have a really great time with it. Or ride the really revvy bike, which puts a premium on, no, I have to keep the revs above 7,000 no matter where I go, what I do. But it's fun.
I disagree on this one, but yeah, I prefer the controllability so that I can use more when I want rather than to actually fight the bike. So,
at the racetrack, I would not want a user-friendly bike. I would want the challenge so that you can learn faster.
The Busa is also a linear bike.
Yeah, but dude, when your linear is at that high level, it's not the same transaction.
That's not, come on, concept.
It's true. No, it's true.
Like, where's the Panigale? Panigale is like...
No. 1 second. I have ridden an R6, which has a premium on saying, no, you stay above 11. And it's a lot of work. But when you do it, it is great fun. I have the 210, which is the other side of it, which is, hey, how much power do you want? How many gears would you like to use? But the step up from these two motorcycles is completely different. The 210's challenge, listen, hear me out. The 210's challenge was, here's a lot of performance, let's see what you can do with it. Which is it doesn't matter beyond that. It's not user friendly anymore. It's just that much performance. That's the Busa to me too. The R6 has a relatively limited, but it puts a premium on your skill to extract the limited. I don't think I want them to be riding a 250 Duke on the racetrack and saying, see, I went so fast, because they're not doing all the work. The bike is doing all the work. I want a challenge. I want the 200 where you have to rev it out, or the 390 where you have to manage the power. I don't want them in the middle. On the street, people who are learning friendly linear bikes like the 250, which have linearity and performance at the top, yes, I think that's a great combination. I would not want you to buy a 250 Duke if you're planning to go to a racetrack. I'd rather you have an RC200 or an RC390. I disagree with, I mean, look, we can agree to disagree, right? It's motoring. We don't have to fight over this.
Anyways, sure.
So I thoroughly enjoyed my ride on it. So in the city environment, I don't see a major problem. There is some amount of heat coming off the radiator. Remember, now they've got this curved radiator, which gives them 10% more surface area, still a single fan. No overheating signs as such. And again, motorcycles are not overheating. The riders usually are. That's the complaining. And I felt some amount of heat on my legs. So watch out for this on the test ride. I don't know how much of a issue it is. Fuel tank is again 15 liters. So on tour, you'll get more range out of this machine. Fuel economy.
You've lived with the 390 Duke, the first gen, which was notorious for heat.
Yeah.
How did you manage?
I'm so busy riding that my legs are slightly cooking is not really part of my focus agenda.
So I guess basically priorities.
Oh, 100%. Anybody who says my motorcycle's overheating in traffic is effectively saying I can't manage the amount of heat it's giving out. But a motorcycle's got to give heat, right? That's how it is. Everybody says EVs don't have this problem, but hey, every EV that you've ridden overheats at some point and starts derating their performance. They have exactly the same problem. They're just not passing it on to you as easily. So heat is a constant, heat is an issue. And if you set your bar low and say this much heat and nothing more, you're just going to be riding very slow motorcycles, or get a car. There's a firewall between you and the engine, problem solved, and air conditioning as a backup. Yeah, or get a scooter.
Yeah.
So to me, heat will always be there. You will always have a personal threshold as to what is acceptable and what is not. And I don't have to judge this for you. Go for a test ride, see the heat. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea.
Is this also going to be a better all-rounder now?
I think so, yeah. Look, the 250 Duke was already a great all-rounder. I rode one all over Meghalaya once, and it was great fun to ride. Did I miss the 390 a little? Yes. But I am a skilled motorcyclist who can go faster than the 250 Duke can. But imagine that if I were a new rider experiencing motorcycling for the first time, I think it would be a super peaceful tour where I'd have the mental space to look around as to what am I passing through, even if I was going reasonably rapidly. So I think it'll make a very decent tourer. All the caveats that we said for the 390 Duke 2024 also apply. So rider space front to back is the same seat. If you're a larger rider, you may not have enough space moving front to back.
Right.
So you might be feeling a little locked in there.
Right.
The pillion pad is reasonable, but it's not a bike I would say take a pillion on with you regularly for touring.
You know, one thing I've really liked on the Dukes is the seat covers.
Yeah.
You know how they have that normal fabric in the middle and then they have the slightly textured fabric at the sides, which is just more grippy.
Yeah.
It just feels like such a nice, clever little detail on the bike.
In fact, I didn't realize this until on my bike. I rode it so much that I wore out the texture in the fabric. And one day I'm just sliding around forward and backward on that seat, and I couldn't figure it out until my mechanic pointed out saying you're sliding around because your fabric is now glossy, shiny Rexine or whatever. So we got a seat guy to replace the fabric, and it did make an instant difference as to how much I was able to remain in place
Just
while I accelerated and braked. Yeah. So if you have an old bike, take a look at your seat. If it is beginning to look shiny, changing it will give you an advantage in riding.
What about the instrument cluster thingy?
Yeah, so Bajaj continues to do this weird thing with these 250 Dukes where they keep giving it like lower levels of equipment, and I'm not sure why, but for what it's worth, like the previous time, there was a copy of the color TFT as a black and white LCD. You've got a copy of the new TFT as a black and white LCD. They said something about improving contrast ratios, but it's still a 5-inch, same size. More or less all the representation is the same. I had a dark visor in the sun today while I was riding it, and I have reading glasses now, so I couldn't clearly see the small numbers, the trip 1, trip 2, I couldn't see them clearly. But the rev counter, the speedo, the gear shift position, etc., no challenge at all. I think it could feel like a nicer bike if Bajaj hadn't challenged you there. Maybe Bajaj needs to think about having a more premium version of the 250 Duke for people who are willing to pay for the LCD. Because remember, one of the most common questions we've always got about the 250 is, can I retrofit the 390's color TFT to this bike or not? Officially, the answer is no. If you know somebody who has retrofit, please leave us a comment. Then we can spread this information out.
Right.
I don't think it should be possible. But as of today, the TFT devalues the motorcycle a little bit.
You don't think it should be possible?
I don't think it's a matter of taking that cluster, plugging it in, and all the sensors will just talk to each other and it just happen. No, I don't think it's going to happen. Electronics wise, obviously the 250 Duke is also a step behind, but the Quickshifter is standard. And I like this Quickshifter. It does actually work in all conditions.
Okay.
So today there was a stretch just in the morning today with I think about 17 kilometers where I was between two sets of traffic. So I could see them approaching and I could see them not releasing space. So I was doing 50 in third. So I'd go up to sixth, come back down to third. And it's just seamless and it's not loaded.
Up and down.
Yeah, and it's not loaded on the throttle. It's always smooth when you're fully loaded up, right? It worked.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. If anything, I thought it was a little sensitive. There were times when I felt like if my boot was like within a half a mile radius of the Quickshifter, just change things. So
okay.
I had to keep moving my boot away from the Quickshifter to not interrupt myself. But every time I intentionally made a shift, it was slick, flawless, no issues at all. I loved it.
And the tank is also larger than before, right? This is
I
the same
told you
as
this last time. E20 tanks will all grow larger because ethanol just takes more volume. So 13.5 to 15 on the 390, 13.5 to 15 on the 252.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So it's a same sweet bike to ride every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's still fun.
Yeah.
It feels smoother now. It's better in terms of the suspension and comfort factor.
Yeah. Again, it's still a sporty machine. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a comfortable sofa. Still not. But as sporty machines go, it has that sense of sophistication about it. The Duke 390 is still another level ahead. And remember, these are roughly the same size because it's the same chassis. So in theory, if somebody were to go to KTM and pay money for adjustable suspension units from the 390 Duke, they would be a straight fit to the 250 Duke. I'm not saying you should do that, but in theory you could.
Yeah. So how much has the price gone up on this?
So the price is roughly 2.4 lakh rupees ex-showroom. So just like they managed to do with the 390 Duke actually, if you remember, they put a lot of equipment, but the price didn't go up by much. That's what's going on here also. It's not gone up by much. So I think if you look at the MT15 as a bookend of the 150cc segment, that price went up quite a bit more than the 250 Duke's price. So in some ways, they've maintained value for money or maybe slightly improved it.
And there are no variants in this?
No, not yet, for sure.
Okay.
If KTM India were to listen to us and put the TFT screen as a thing, I would assume what? 10,000 rupees for the screen? And then it would be a 2.5 lakh rupee KTM 250 Duke.
But no cornering ABS, nothing.
No IMU, nothing basic.
On this.
And I don't think it's required, honestly. Okay, a controllable, feelsome, feedback-rich 250cc bike. I think under most conditions, you'll have enough knowledge of what's going on to not really need electro nannies all the way around. The 390 needs it because it's so exuberant that you can very, very quickly step over the limit. On the 250 Duke, you can see the limit coming. It's not a problem.
Right.
Okay, what we don't know, headlight. I haven't been able to ride it in the night yet. We had a paperwork issue, so there was a delay in the story. And I haven't taken a pillion on either. But again, if you're planning to ride two up a lot, especially on tour, think ADVs, do not even think street bikes. It just makes so much more sense.
Right. What more needs to be added?
We've covered everything. Oh, sorry. I just forgot to mention before asking for the summary that even all the aluminium bits from the 390 Duke are on the 250.
So the same subframe.
The same aluminium subframe. It's just painted black, so you don't notice it instantly as aluminium. Okay, one more way to devalue this poor bike. And I keep feeling sorry for the 250 Duke, honestly, right? Because it's such a sweet bike. It's so easy to recommend. I know you're going to have a good time with it. And then they'll do these kind of decontenting in the interface parts, right?
What did you think about the color scheme?
I think that Kiska's 250 Duke design is better than the 390 Duke's design. That overbuilt front shroud on thing. I'm telling you this. If I were to buy a 390 Duke, I'm going to get the 250's bodywork.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a good painter to match the colors, replicate, right? And then put the 250's thing with the 390 sticker on.
I don't like this simplicity. The side panel is just so clean, finished in one. I liked it so much.
Yeah, I totally want the aluminium finish on the subframe. And I just take everything from the 250 Duke and re-sticker and repaint it to a 390 Duke. And I think I just have a sharper, cleaner, smaller feeling motorcycle.
I actually think that this design, this scheme is the...
Yeah, and on the Atlantic Blue KTM 390, the 390 is in white. So I can still run white wheels, so I'm good. I love white wheels. I know you guys have a concern about chain loops, paddle. I just don't care. I just love white wheels.
Okay. Time for the summary?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a motorcycle that's basically sharing a lot with the 390 Duke. The frame is the same, the wheel sizes, all of that is the same. The difference is with the engine, which, as Shumi pointed out, is probably the start of a new family, which is going to go down from here to the 200 and the 125, because most importantly, it is now using a single overhead cam. It does use higher compression. So power, despite these changes, has actually just gone up. So it's 31 horsepower right now. And it's got, I don't know the torque figure.
It's a little bit more torque.
It's a little bit more torque, right? So it's effectively to ride still that sweet KTM 250, the most non-KTM KTM, which means it will do whatever you want instead of demanding from you to ride how it likes to be ridden. It makes it a really plural motorcycle, which means it's good for the city, it's good for newer riders, it's good for touring, it can do sport riding as well. And its chassis now with the new chassis is just as fun, just as involving as the 390 Duke, but without getting scary or intimidating. And the performance also ties in with that perfectly. It's got all the advantages as well in terms of getting a larger tank, which means you have a little bit more range than before, presumably considering E20 fuels and everything. In terms of the equipment, you have the same layout, the same size digital screen as the 390 Duke, but it's not color on the 250 Duke.
It has color. It's black and white.
All right, it's black and white. The price has gone up slightly. It costs about 2.4 lakh rupees. It's not available in different variants. The equipment levels are standard. So you get the Quickshifter standard, which Shumi enjoyed. He, in fact, thought it was a bit too sensitive. It worked quickly going up and down. Revs out to about 10 something thousand RPM, this engine. So it is fun. And what we disagreed on, whether this would be a good bike for the track or not. I guess it depends on who you are as a rider. But it's a motorcycle that you could enjoy there as well, despite being this middle of the ground KTM that sits in the Duke family. What else is missing? Anything missing? Yeah, if you wanted, since if you're naughty enough, you could get the suspension from the 390 Duke, provided you could find it somewhere and bolt it onto this. But this suspension is pretty good. It's taking up the bumps and all a lot better than it did earlier. And whatever you can feel comes when you're going faster or through rougher stuff. So this is still the nicest KTM. And as Shumi said, it's the one that he would most easily recommend and is the one that he recommends the most, even more than the Duke. Beginner friendly, new rider friendly, and great value as well, considering the 125 Duke is not that inexpensive in comparison to it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice summary.
Kuch miss hua?
Nahin. I think what I would add to that is one or two things, right? One is there was a lot of questions that we got. Okay, let's do the user questions.
Okay.
Right? So I'll just start with this because this is a I don't want to deal with like a user question. We should be doing it anyway. But Bajaj has had a whole bunch of issues related to the new, mostly 390 Duke. I think there's a few 250 Dukes in there. And what I'd like to tell you about this is, I told you at MotorInc First to not go out and buy the first batch of bikes, okay? I also said this in the context of the Speed 400. And what I said is, there are too many variables in play right now. These variables will reduce over time. Chakan 2 is the new plant that Bajaj is using to manufacture the 390 Duke, the Speed 400, etc. So brand new plant, which implies a whole bunch of, I'm assuming, new workers of some sort, or at least some new processes of some sort. There's new suppliers, etc., etc., etc. It's a large chain of variables that sometimes doesn't add up and it takes time to settle down. And I think that what they have is a small problem which can balloon into a major problem if it is not caught early enough. And in both cases, the solution is under warranty and it's happening. Now, for those of you who listened to what I said the last time, if you listen to what I said the last time, if you wait till March or April,
humility is his key sweet.
If you think modesty is a virtue, please leave me a comment, because in 47 years of being on this earth, nobody has been able to answer why modesty is a virtue. I invite you to help me answer this question to him. What I'm saying is, if you buy these bikes, and I'm talking of all the new bikes simultaneously, right? Speed 400, Scrambler 400X, Himalayan, 390 Duke, 250 Duke. I don't know why you're in a rush. I know that they're giving discounts. Like, did you know KTM has a loyalty bonus going on right now?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you've had a previous, there's a terms and condition to it of which specific KTM, but if you've had one of those KTMs and you trade it in for the new one, you get 10,000 rupees off on the price.
Wow.
I think it's rather cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Except that maybe it'll run out by December. I'm hoping that they extend it further. But what I'm saying is when a new bike comes, I know we all get excited about it, but Karthik and I were very, very clear and unequivocal about this. When a new bike comes and you get excited is not the time to take a booking and then run for delivery. Take the booking, delay the delivery, sit on your money. It's fine. Let 4 months, 5 months pass, especially if you're one of those guys who keeps motorcycles around and then you like the idea that, hey, I've had this for 10 years, I've ridden this for 7 years. If you're one of those people, no reason to get the first bike in town, because the guy who got the first bike in town might be a social media genius, but he's probably a real world. You're buying the least high quality version of this motorcycle available, because trust me, the quality of the product gets better as time passes and mass production becomes more and more stable. The last version of the motorcycle is usually the best version of the motorcycle, not the first one. So again, I implore you, if you value safety of your purchase and you want to ride your motorcycle a lot and want a reliable one, do not go and buy one now. Wait 5 months, 6 months. Somebody asked us, if everybody feels like this, then what will happen? We'll never get the second batch. No, then the quality process will become imperative that no flaws come out. You are in a way abetting the idea that it's okay if a few flaws go out because you can fix it in the field. And I'm telling you, manufacturers, they're not cynical about it. They are working as hard as they can to fix it in the field too, because quality reputations are hard to fix. But I'm not sure why you want to participate in what you guys are calling the experiment at all. Just wait. If everybody waits, then the manufacturer knows they can't even mess up the first batch. Quality levels have to just go up.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. So to me, I'm thinking I should buy a 390 Duke and a Himalayan, maybe a 250 Duke to go with it, maybe a 400 for contrast, and maybe a 400X to do something else with. Even if I were to buy all 6, I would not do any of this before June next year. March, I would start going to the showrooms. June is when I would like the delivery of my machine.
Himalayan also is something that
I said the same thing. I counted all of them together. Yeah. Do not buy in yet. There's no reason to rush into this. Again, we are not expecting problems for all of these machines. I'm just saying if there are going to be major issues, it's going to be in the first batches, not sometime later.
And they have happened. So, right. So it's not just crying wolf, right?
No, KTM has a reputation for it, right? We know that the most troublesome 390s are the 2013s. Which is the first time they ever built the 390 and deployed a lot of tech to it. The next most troublesome KTMs are the 17s, which is the first of the second generation when they deployed a lot of new technology in it. What they've done in 2024 is the third generation when they've deployed a lot of new technology from a brand new factory.
So the 2013 390 Duke actually had 3 iterations. There was the launch one, there was one in between which had a lower rev ceiling, and then there was the third one, which is the one that I bought.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I bought mine in 2014 and I was actually aiming for the last of the 13s.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we are rolling out so many changes to the 14s that if you wait 1 week, you'll get a better bike. Correct. And I did wait, and I did take their advice on that. So again, underlining my point, when a new bike comes, excitement is great. Rushing to buy a bike is not the smartest thing. The kind of risk appetite that implies, I promise you, your excitement is bigger than your risk appetite. Questions?
Shall we? Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been asked to compare it with the, first and foremost, let's say the RTR 310.
Okay, so we've not ridden the RTR 310 at all yet. TVS has not given us a clear timeline on when we will get this machine so far. So I honestly don't know what to tell you. What I know of the RR 310 as a platform is that it's a little bit more powerful than this KTM 250 Duke, but it has never been a happy performer. If you remember the convex straight line and concave curves, the RR 310 feels a little concave. It feels like it's doing a little less than you think it should. What I'm hoping for is that the RTR 310 fixes that. The rest of the gadgets and gizmos, I'm just going to completely ignore. And to me, at that point, it is a really expensive acquisition. If you start adding the features in the Quickshifter and the headlight that increases power with speed or whatever, then that price goes past the 390 Duke. Okay, so to me, if you have a stretched budget and you're looking for a 250, I think the 250 Duke and its peers are enough. You don't really need to stretch to the RTR 310. And if you're buying the RTR 310, make no mistake, you're buying an extremely expensive motorcycle for what it is.
And within the family, there's the Speed 400.
I think the Speed 400 and the 250 Duke have a similar nature in the sense of both are unchallenging motorcycles. But if you can get past the little bit of screaming and whining that the 400cc engine does past 6,000 RPM, then obviously it's got a lot more performance than the 250 Duke. So if you're okay with it, and this is why to me test rides are important, because look, vibration is a subjective thing, right? I am okay with a lot of vibration, but I have ridden a few race bikes, so I know how bad it can get. I'd rather not have it though, right? Your expectation of vibration is yours. So if you think the Speed 400 vibrates enough for you to be able to live with it, I see no reason why you shouldn't get one. If that is not an issue, then get the Speed 400. If that is an issue, the Duke 250 does no vibration all the way across its rev range. The Speed 400 does no vibration up to about 100 kmph on the highway. Take your pick. Obviously, the Speed 400 is faster. Handling terms, the Duke will feel quicker. The Speed 400 will feel unchallenging. Also, it's a very responsive motorcycle. Suspension wise, the Speed 400 will feel more refined over the bumps, where the smaller bumps, it just does a tremendous job of absorbing them. The 250 is not in that ballpark, but it is not terrible either.
And in terms of quality, because we thought the 400 was excellent.
Again, I've said this before, I think the Triumph's finish is very good. I don't think their quality is outrageously great. So I think the KTM's, the Harley Davidson, which is terribly finished comparatively speaking, but I don't think the quality is inferior. I think the finish is just way inferior to this motorcycle. So again, I'm going to say, I don't think the Triumph is an outrageously high quality.
So let's break it down into build and finish.
Not even build. I'm saying build, finish and quality. Build is how robust the motorcycle is. None of these are weaklings. They all feel like they will last India. No stress. Finish quality, Triumph is definitely at the top. The Dukes are right behind it. The Harley Davidson is a long way behind. I haven't seen the Himalayan, but from what you told me, there are areas of finish where it is very close to this, but welds and stuff, it is very far from this, right? And finish, Triumph says we pay attention to all the small details. We have the metal elements and all of that. It does elevate your experience. The wiring is tucked away and stuff. So if you look at the Harley Davidson, the wiring is everywhere. If you look at the Dukes, most of it is hidden. If you look at the Triumph, all of it is hidden. As one example, is the tolerances, how panels sit with each other and fit next to each other, right? Since the Triumph has just a metal tank, there's no complication here. But the Duke has the metal tank and then there has a plastic wrap that turns into the shrouds. Now I've given you a seam there. Is the seam even is where you'd look at for finish? And it's nearly even, it's not bad. We've seen much worse. We've seen Bajajes which from left to right were completely asymmetric in terms of what the panel gaps were, right? The Harley Davidson has two large metal things, so there's not a lot of finish going on. So if they were to just clean up the wiring, that bike would immediately look a lot better. But finish also has consistency issues. The Harley Davidson's pivot plate is one really ugly finished casting, matched to a mirror finished tube next to it. It's what's going on here, right? So to me, I don't think the Triumph.
So let me rephrase that in those terms. So the finish is on Triumph has been the benchmark.
Yeah.
How far behind is the KTM now?
Pretty
because
close.
KTM used to be, let's say, a fair bit away.
No, I think they have taken a step up for sure. It's pretty close.
You can feel that even on the 250.
You can feel that on the 250. I would say the area above the headlight to the number plate area, that place with the wiring and all of that drama, I think they should just lower the number plate and fill that gap up and just make the bike feel even better. But your eye goes straight to that tangle of wiring going into the headlight, and I don't know why Kiska would leave it like that. So to me, that is a definite sore point for me. It definitely looks ugly. But the way the aluminium swing arm looks and is finished, and the way the shock is mounted, and it's very good now.
How does it compare with the CB300R?
Okay, so with the CB300R, I have 2 points to make. The first point I want to make is, and I know you're going to get this wrong and misinterpret this, but I'll still go ahead and plunge into this, is when a motorcycle becomes cheaper, which is very rare, it doesn't become better because it became cheaper, it just becomes more buyable. So whatever the CB300R was, it's still that motorcycle. It's not become better because of the price. 1. 2, I don't know how to answer that because I haven't tested the motorcycle yet. So I don't know whether it's a good, bad or an ugly bike. But what I remember reading is, I think I was between jobs when that motorcycle came out. So I was not actively testing at that point of time for that month and a half. The journalists who came back from their ride didn't have the impression of a really exciting motorcycle. They thought it was kind of dull.
I didn't ride it, but I remember all the conversations back at the Zig office, and they were the weirdest conversations.
That's not a good sign.
It was like, it can go fast, but then it doesn't. It is smooth here, but then it vibrates. It's like it's doing nothing really well, is doing nothing really right. And which is really strange. And considering it's a 300, nobody came back saying that, wow, this felt fast.
But why do you think it is strange? The only product that Honda has made that represent what Honda is globally, or at least in some way, appears to be the Activa and the Shine at best. Which other motorcycle has not had a strange conversation associated with it?
Stop. This is about the 250 Duke.
Sorry, okay, we got distracted. We'll discuss this another time. If you have a thought on that, you can leave us a comment. We'll try and answer it. But yeah, so I loved riding the 250 Duke. I don't think it's the most exciting of the Dukes, and I think that is actually its USP. If you're a new rider, I don't think you can do better than the Duke 250 if you're looking for a sporty motorcycle, which allows you to learn, doesn't scare you while you're learning, and has the headroom to allow you to keep learning for at least the next 2 or 3 years before you can upgrade. Every aspect of this motorcycle is definitely gotten better.
Kids, if you want to sell this idea to your parents, you can just tell them that, a 200 Duke versus a 250 Duke might be a bit of a step up in money, but it's a lot more motorcycle in terms of you can enjoy it for many more years, so you don't have to ask them for a new bike too far from now.
It's a very, very good trick. Yeah, so if you're thinking about the 250 Duke, we've hopefully answered your questions. Can leave us more questions in the comments if you like. If you haven't tested in a Duke, the 250 Duke specifically, go get a test ride. You'll be shocked at how different and how un-KTM this motorcycle is. We've tested it in various versions over the years, ridden it all over this country. And I'm telling you, every time I ride the 250 Duke, I have a big smile on my face because it's so un-KTM. It's such a peaceful experience that I absolutely love it. What I'd like you to do now is tell us how Kartikeya's summary worked. Rate it out of 10, like you did for me on the Himalayan. You gave me very high points, and I'm really grateful. I would like to know how he did on his summary in this one.
Be kind.
And as usual, if you have any questions, please do leave us a comment. MotorInc tries to answer almost all the comments it gets. We've been remarkably successful at it, I think, although we do struggle with how much you guys leave us comments. Just to give you an example, the 250 Duke question in 18 hours had 327 comments on it. Instagram extra, and it takes us a while to get through it, but we do put in the effort because you do put in the effort, so thank you very much. And if there's anything else, do let us know. This is MotorInc First, available on Apple, Amazon, Google, and Spotify as audio only if you prefer to listen to it while you're doing other things, hopefully not riding motorcycles. I think when you're riding motorcycles, you should just be doing that. All right, thank you so much for watching.